Ben, thank you for joining me today. You've spent years documenting the human side and also the cruelty and the destruction of this war in Ukraine right now.
Yeah, well, thanks for Segi having me. Because, I'm making films because I want the world to know about what's going on, not just to make beautiful films, but because it's so important for the people in Ukraine.
When did you start making films?
Yeah, well, I went to university at the University of Southern California. I majored in history, but I spent all my time in the cinema department. And because I wanted to know something about the world in order to do media, rather than just do media and have like stupid things. So that's where that's actually, and I started early, and I won't go through the whole thing. When I was in high school, I had a professional job as a photographer for the local newspaper, and then through my whole life, I've been in media in one way or another. I worked in television after college, and then I've worked on political campaigns doing media, and then in that time, you can look at IMDb. I wrote a film, and then I worked for many years on a private project that has to do with my father's life. And he didn't want anybody to see it until after he died. He's the survivor of a Holocaust. And he's from this area that's under conflict now. He's from a village near Chernivtsi.
Okay.
And it's because of my experience making films about him, and also it's a very large archival project that prepared me for this war. And so that's where I am now. And I decided to, but To the Zero Line is my first feature that I directed and did myself in this way. And then the Steel Porcupine is a follow-on. And then now I am committed to making films through the war in and into Reconstruction.
My next question would have been, what's your, when did your personal connection to Ukraine start and how did it begin? You already now mentioned a strong connection to Ukraine, but can you maybe add more detail about you personally? When
Sure.
did you came there and when you start looking at this?
Well, it really my father's family lived in the same village in Rosnov, which is a little bit north of Chernivtsi, a tiny village, for many generations, and they were born in the same house. His mother was born in that house. His uncle was born in that house. His grandfather was born in that. On and on and on and on this way, and my great grandfather was in the Austro-Hungarian army from this area, and so my roots are very deep in Ukraine, what is now Ukraine, in this territory. And my brother and he went to Ukraine a couple of decades ago, or maybe 10 years ago, and made a film there called Worse Than War. I've become very, very familiar with the issues that have to do with Ukraine. And so when the full scale invasion happened, I was with my brother, and my brother is a scholar on genocide. And we knew that at that time, after the 3 days, that the Russian national project would be to eliminate Ukrainians from Ukraine. And that was very, very clear to us from a scholarly standpoint, from a historical standpoint. And the one thing that we've learned that he taught me is that in these kinds of situations, when one group is trying to eliminate another group, they often succeed because the outside world doesn't really understand what's happening. And so, from a media standpoint, because I've spent my life in media and I have some talent, I realized I did not want to watch this happen. I wanted to help in the way that I can. And that was to use media to tell the world about the national project of the Russians, which has been going on for 100 years, because that's the only way that Ukraine can get the help, not just me, but others like me, from the outside parties outside Ukraine that Ukraine needs so badly. It's really the information domain of war that is so critical to Ukraine. And I decided right at the very first few days, really, of the full-scale invasion to go to Ukraine and to help.
I grew up in a war as a small kid. There was a war where I came from Bosnia, and
Well, Bosnia.
genocide happening, ethnic cleansing. Then later, when I escaped with my mother as refugee, and I will tell somebody something, and people will not believe me. This used to
Yeah.
hurt me very much. The wound, the wound, to not to not be believed that this was like a strong hit to the soul. And I'm interested, how does it feel for you to be confronted with people saying stuff like, this is propaganda, I don't believe you, this is not true? Because I of course believe you. I knew this is it before it was.
Yeah, well, with Bosnia, with Bosnia was a good example because Bill Clinton has said his greatest regret as president was not to intervene in Bosnia in that genocide. And what you're talking about is exactly the problem, and both the problem and the solution. Because in the case of Bosnia, in case of the genocide, um, it's at first it's thought this is a war crime, rape, because there were rape camps set up as well. It's not just murder, and it was really very organized attempt. And outside world said, oh, this is a war crime or crime against humanity. And this is the problem: is that each individual event is reported as being one event, not part of a system. And what happened in Bosnia is that it became understood that this was a system of rape, murder, and what they called ethnic cleansing, but what it totally is genocide, or what we call eliminationism. What we learned from that is that in the case of Ukraine, it's so important for there to be the help of outside parties of the West, in order to otherwise we would know it, otherwise they would not have the materials that they need, and we should give them and work with them much better in order to in order for them to have victory against a genocidal invader. This is not a fight about territory, and it's really a fight for the survival of the people as a Ukrainian nation, and that's why that's what's so important, and that's why I identify with it. My father survived the Holocaust, and you do too. So anybody who knows about the history of what can happen knows how important it is to tell the story and to do something about it. Like you're doing something about it with Toonie Tuesday and your podcast, and I don't know all the other ways, but many people are trying to do what they can do in the way that they can do it, in order for there to be and collectively it's very powerful, but we need to become more powerful.
Yes, I'm trying to do best I can to prevent at least few people from experiencing what I experienced, but the reality is many more people in Ukraine experience now what we were experiencing, because the size of this war is.
Yeah, right now what you say is true. It's a bigger conflict, but every single person matters the same, because
Yes,
how can you say? I mean, when somebody sits in their house and they have a family, that's the universe to them. So
yes,
yeah, there are many, many people, but each universe, this is not like just idealistically speaking. This is actually how I feel. One life is just as important as 100 lives. These are innocent people, and nobody should suffer like this. I mean, it's completely crazy war. If you think about it, everyone is. It would be like people in Paris having lovely life, and all of a sudden there's an attack on Paris. All of it, it. And what would we do? What would the people in Paris do? And people in Ukraine were just leading regular lives. And now, just imagine if anybody who's listening to this were all of a sudden in the middle of like a missile attack every single night.
Let's talk about your movies. Right now, you have Steel Porcupine that is
Yeah.
out that can be watched. I have watched it. How did you approach its structure and the tune and the tone?
And the tone of the movie and the structure.
Yeah,
Well, it's many things. First of all, I want to make a work of art, and I want it to be both informational, but also emotional, because it's emotion that people. There are many different reports in the news on different things, but I want people to feel both what's the situation, and also see something in their own life. There's a humanity that we all share together as human beings, and so that when you see a child and a family, it's much more than you're not just looking at somebody, but you're, through empathy and art, it makes you think about your own life. And so how I approached it is how I approach it. So it's many, many different layers. One is a work of art, but then there is the information that we're trying to get across in it. And I realized when many things. One is from a structural standpoint. What is the what does Ukraine need right now? And this year, the year 2025, has been a year of two major elements of the war will determine the future course of the war. And one of them is geopolitical alignment, how the West aligns, um, and how strongly behind Ukraine with Russia, however that might be, and also industrial competition, the weapons. And that was the topic that I thought that I wanted the film to part of the topic film to address, and to do that, it's geared towards mostly towards policymakers. Actually, I want people who make the decisions on these matters, um, because the weapons and help from the West for Ukraine is so important. Like just satellite data, for example, intelligence information. For them to understand two things which weren't understood before, really, as well as in the last few months. For a long time, people have been talking about this as a territorial conflict for the Donbass and Crimea, but it's not that. It's an attempt, as I said, to wipe out the Ukrainian people. And it's really important for decision makers to realize what the war aim of the Russians is. And to understand the war aim, you also then can understand the Ukrainian position, which is that they are not going to just accept capitulation to a Russian genocide. And when you understand that, which I think many decision makers didn't want to face that previously, um, then they could think, well, you could trade some land, or the Ukrainians will give up if it's difficult enough. But when you understand really what is at stake, then the West can really only do two things: walk away, or help Ukraine do what it needs to do for victory. But it can't hope that Ukraine is going to just give in to the Russians. And so that's a thematic aspect through it. And in order to achieve that, and then there are a number of elements, like how do you tell that story, because it goes back 100 years to the Holodomor. The attempt to destroy the Ukrainian people didn't start in 2014, as many people in Ukraine point out. It didn't start, or it didn't start in 2022. It didn't start in 2014, but it goes back a very long time. So we start in the Holodomor, 100 years ago in 1933, which was Stalin created a famine in Ukraine that killed arguably 2 million to 5 million Ukrainians. And I wanted to compress history into 37 minutes and compress all of these issues into a very short film that anybody can sit down and watch in an emotional and an entertaining way. So there's a lot layered into this. And the final thing I'll say about this aspect of making it is that there's no narration in it. I don't make films, at least right now, that has a narrator. You're a witness to history in a way, and you're a witness to the present. And so it's in the last 7 minutes of the film, I think it's 7 minutes, it doesn't have any words at all. But you get the message. And so in total, that's a long explanation, and it doesn't really put it all together. You really have to see the film to really get the full impact. From the Holodomor to Eisenhower entering the death camps, or a death camp after World War II, to Bucha, which is analogous in a way to the discovery of corpses after World War II, to the failed attempts of the West to make treaties with Russia that they always break, to the present situation.
Usually, we always on Tuesday try to support the most critical need at the zero line. Hearing about your idea with the movie, we thought, and John Lineker advocated for that it makes sense to bring the word out there and to let people know and gain support. So I am proud and happy we helped you, assisting you financially with making these movies.
Yeah, well, I'm so grateful for so many reasons for Toonie Tuesday's help. For those who don't know, a great deal of this film, the Steel Porcupine, was crowdfunded, and Toonie Tuesday was a really great help in the crowdfunding effort, and also Fiverr Friday, because it was a Fiverr Friday and a Toonie Tuesday. And for the people who don't know, those are weekly. These guys are incredible. You are incredible. I mean, the organization you have to raise money for a different cause or purpose, pretty much once and twice a week for almost 4 years now. It's an extraordinary effort, and it's kind of like big organizations like whoever they might be, whoever might be UNICEF or United States or whoever's giving, they don't deal with supporting the smaller efforts. But the smaller efforts are very important. Like our effort is relative, to an airplane, a very, very tiny effort. But it's very big to have the support of you guys, both in the contribution financial, but also, this is a war, and to know we have so many fans and so many people who like our work, that it's also a big, moral boost too. And so I'm really, really happy. And you guys are so well organized, and you're like a first class factory for the whole thing, for creating the campaign, for creating the campaign, for creating the marketing, which is the poster, and for distributing it online to like your whole network of people, and then collecting the funds. It's a great machine that you guys have put together. It's really impressive.
I just want to add, it's not 4 years. We are closing in on 3 years since we do this. We started after we sensed people getting tired after a year and so many fundraisers, and we as donors, we are a collective of donors actually. We were donors and we still are donors, but we came together to once weekly make an organized effort so we can complete one fundraiser that day with micro donations, and so this help so this help happens fast. Yeah, that was the initial idea, and it has a little bit evolved, and now we are doing this Fever Friday too, where we promote different fundraisers. But on Tuesday we try always to concentrate on one thing, so this one thing can start to have impact instead of that it takes like a month for completing it.
Yeah,
That's
which
the,
you brought up for people who don't know, the donation on Toonie Tuesday is $2. And it's a lot of $2 today. The micro donation's a great word. I've never heard that term before. It, it's really you guys have it down. I give you. I mean, I was amazed by the concept and by also your ability to You know that you have a very very well oiled machine. It blew my
thank you,
mind.
thank you. Yeah, shout out to Kobzar, who had the idea with Fella Sam together in a chat. I joined the chat, then we
You,
chatted further, and yeah, then a few days later we started this, and now as we see, almost 3 years, every Tuesday we did the campaign, and just today. On Wednesday we finished the campaign that started yesterday. It's a long Tuesday because in Hawaii
it's
it's
one,
in Hawaii Tuesday just finished, and in Japan it was days
you guys
ago.
work hard.
Yeah, around we go
It's like, I
around.
remember when you did it with me, it was like you had the timing down. It's like the sun is rising. The sun is rising in like in Germany, so we got to
Yeah,
do and so you really follow the sun in the campaign
yeah,
as far as like pushing it. And the other thing that you have, which is really great, is that the spirit of your people, of the donors and the people who work on it,
yeah.
um,
That's great.
it's really creates a cohesion,
That's great.
that you can really feel. I mean, you guys are a real
Yeah,
team,
yeah.
and
Many
it's much more than money.
Yeah, many benefitors have told us to experience this. So many creative comments, graphics from the donors themselves, not only from our team, but like hundreds of donors that make their own graphics, boost, share nice words
Yeah,
of support. That's cool. Yes,
yeah, very cool. I love you guys. I really do.
thank you very much. Same.
It's the it's the spirit that is so to me that is really incomparable. There are organizations that raise millions of dollars and there's no spirit at all, and here you guys are and you've raised a ton, but your spirit is really uh, it can be. I feel it from the people so much. There's so much excitement.
Thank you. Told me you are working on Citizen Gunfighters.
Yeah.
How does this movie different from the one we have seen just now?
Well, we were working on Citizen Gunfighters when Trump was elected.
Yes.
And when Trump was elected, I realized that Citizen Gunfighters, which we are still, we went back to working on it now. We're back to work on it. That Citizen Gunfighters was not relevant to the moment as much as this film, because this film is really a political film, and because of what I mentioned is that this film is really a primer. So the Steel Porcupine is really a primer on the war that I felt that decision makers really needed to understand in 37 minutes the whole situation. But Citizen Gunfighters is a lot different because it's about the spirit of it's about the spirit of the country that ordinary people are doing incredible things to fight in this war, in both at the front and in the home front and the front line. It's actually not like the first film, which is To the Zero Line, which is how the whole country went to war in the first year. This is where we are now, and the next film is about a big topic and how all the people who are in the country and also outside of the country, because it's a global effort, are really citizen gunfighters, individuals who have decided, like Toonie Tuesday, but to do something in various domains of the war.
When the camera turns off or your screen turns off after editing, how do you process everything what you see?
Well, I'll tell you, I cry almost every day. I especially for so many reasons. It's a long war right now. It's 4 years, and sometimes I'm tired, but I know I'm a marathon runner, and I run marathons, and I know that at every time everybody who runs marathons knows one thing, that at some point in the race it's going to really be terrible, and you're going to want to quit maybe, but you don't. You keep going, and the soldiers have to do that. And I feel as long as the soldiers are there, and as long as the people in the country need help, it doesn't really matter. There are good days and bad days, but it's important to support them. But emotionally, yeah, I feel very close to, and just on a human level, to the pain that many people feel, and also the injustice of just people wanting to live a life, and suddenly that they are under debt. A lot of people have died this way. And finally, I'll say about this is because my father and family have survived the Holocaust. I identify with I've always have identified with what it was for them to be faced with extermination. Many perished, and I really feel that I really feel, in a way, going back to what they experienced and what they faced in their lives. In a sense, I empathize even more because it's not an intellectual exercise. It's one that I've experienced now, and also a lot of appreciation and admiration for everybody who. And there's a great community of people like yourself, like yourself, like the Toonies, the people who are in all different walks of life, all around the country, all around the country, and all around the world. And so there's a sense of community too, which is a very strong bond. I mean, many of us would never have even known about each other, and now we're all working together as brothers and sisters in our own way, but in a great spirit. So the one thing I've learned about war, and I've never been in war before, is that it's everything in all the emotions of life and everything about life all jumbled together. It's all mixed up. And so you have happiness and you have tragedy, you have struggle and you have relief, you have rest and you have exhaustion. It's all like 1 minute it can be one thing, the next minute a different thing. And it's a really interesting aspect of life that I think if you are not engaged in this kind of thing, you can live quite happily in the garden, and that's perfectly all right. But that's not the situation right now for me.
I wanted to ask you, what has Ukraine, what has this conflict now taught you about the humanity in general as a whole?
About humanity in general, this I've known about because I'll tell you why. I'm laughing because, because of the family history and because my brother and my father have studied genocide and have studied war as scholars and written about it and lectured on it, and it's how I grew up, knowing about these things, that I know that this happens, and it's part of the human condition, unfortunately. It's just, and so there's probably nothing that is occurring that is a total surprise to me, but because it's happened before in other places to other people in various situations. What it's told me about humanity is that basically the good guys have to get together and beat the bad guys. That's what it confirms to me about humanity, is that there will always be bad people, bad actors, and it's essential now. And so what taught me is how important it is, and I've known intellectually how important it is, and in for personal reasons and just conceptually, but now I feel how important it is, and that's what I've learned about myself in a way, that how important it is to stand up and for the good guys, for the people who need it, and that it's not always easy to do, but it's essential to do to help somebody else.
Yeah. For myself, it's like I hear people say like we don't share same values, or we share same
Yeah.
values, or things like this. For me, it's I share the same values with everybody. Everybody should have the right to exist, to not be raped, not be robbed, not be killed, not be
Yeah.
displaced,
Exactly.
and these are the basic values that I will support anybody anywhere in having these rights before anything else. Anything else we can talk later. If I want to be friend with them, have a coffee with them or not, it's a whole another story. But like which political party they are in, or which religion, it's that comes after. First, everybody should have the right to not be displaced, raped, killed.
Yeah, and there are people who are against what you believe in, and they will always be against that, and we have to stand up for what's right.
Yes,
Um, and that, I think many people in the West, they after World War II, especially in the last few decades, they never really were faced with danger like this, and so they didn't believe that it could exist, or it existed in
yes,
some other, in like in a, it's almost like a fairy tale to them. And here we are again with this kind of situation, and that's part of the hard part, I think, for especially for Western leaders to decide fully to. Right now, what I'm pushing is the idea. I think the idea of urgency, because every day that goes by now, another more people are being killed, more Ukrainians are being killed, more there's more suffering. Children are growing older under who have been abducted, and they're in greater peril. So the clock is ticking right now, and my frustration now, and one of the things I've learned but have known about before. Uh, I have to. I almost said Sergey, but Segi.
Segi, Segi.
Segi.
Yeah,
One of the things that really kind of shocks me, though, Segi, is that the West has been slow to help Ukraine with the tools it needs in order to end this in an expeditious way. And at this point, I think everybody knows who is a decision maker what the situation is. And now it's really a question. It's an issue of urgency, and so that's one of the things I'm pushing now and talking about now is the urgency to end the conflict on terms that are acceptable to Ukraine.
yes,
Not just end the conflict on terms that are terrible for Ukraine, which was what the Russians want to do, but terms acceptable to Ukraine.
yes,
And that's the steel porcupine. One of the things is the West came up with the idea of the steel porcupine, the concept, which is to arm Ukraine so that no country could attack it, so it would be indigestible to any outside force. And that's why the film is called The Steel Porcupine, because it's inspired by Ursula von der Leyen saying that after a meeting of the European leaders earlier in 2025. And if they help Ukraine become the steel porcupine and end the war on terms sufficient for Ukraine, then this will stop. And I think that's the only way it will stop. And I mean, they've tried talking. Talking isn't really quite working, is it?
this was a good message to leave at the end. And now I would like to have one message or a kind of advice directly to me as a creator and activist, and other creators and activists on the one side, and the other side a message for the people watching.
What one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is in marketing what's called crossover. The pro-Ukrainian media community, we spend a lot of time educating each other about everyday events. There's on the battlefield, what's happening in politics, and so forth. And what we could do better job of, I think, is telling other people outside the people who are already supporters of Ukraine what's going on, because they, like you said, many of them don't know. They're not aware of what's going on. So even if, and it's not to get the most clicks, because I don't think the most clicks is very useful, because it depends who's the click. And I think even if you talk to your own church group, or you talk to, or you talk to your own politician, or from the media standpoint, pick a group to get interested in what's going on in Ukraine, but also what's most important, I think, from a media standpoint, is to connect the dots, because we have so much, like you said, everybody in Ukraine now has a camera, and so we have a lot of event reporting. So like a building has been bombed, a school has been hit, a hospital has been hit, and they're seen as individual events. There's so many individual events in this world. But what's important is to say, this hospital was hit like recently, a couple months ago in Kyiv, or maybe it wasn't Kyiv, maybe it was Kharkiv, I think. And then a year ago in Kyiv, and then before that, the children's, where the children were in the theater in Mariupol, and to connect those things. No, like you said in Bosnia, Kosovo, no one event was what that war was about, what the wars were about. It was the campaign of all of the all the methods of genocide. So from the media standpoint, is to connect the dots, and then from the target, audience standpoint, is to find your niche, whatever it is. Like just a Toonie Tuesday group that that is part of what you do, is very important to keep the spirit alive in that group. We can't get everybody to be interested in one thing, but we can get a small group interested in what each of us is doing.
Yes, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and your ideas and your advice, and also insights into your movie making, and for being here.
Well, thank you, Segi. I really appreciate what you guys have done.
Welcome.